If you've never heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, and I'll explain really quickly. My favorite part, it's free. There's actually creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer if you want. It will actually distribute your podcast so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, and many more, and you can actually make money from it without any minimum numbers of listeners, and it's everything that you need to actually make a podcast in one place. So do this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. In this episode, Nelson talks about his journey from tech in the Silicon Valley to fitness, and then into actually teaching personal trainers all about financial literacy, which you'll hear about it when he talks about his book. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and I can't wait to give my feedback after it's over. Hey, welcome everybody to the Blaze Your Own Trail podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Mendoza, and today I have a very special guest. His name is Nelson Toriano, and I'm actually going to go ahead and let him tell us a little bit about himself.
Sure thing, and I'm very excited to be here. And again, thank you for having me. Like I said, my name is Nelson Toriano. I'm the CEO of a financial education company called Coach Nelly Toriano. My personal background, I'm born and raised in Silicon Valley, so I'm still based here. And when you're in this area, you fall into tech careers. So I was working in the tech industry for about 10 to 11 years. And I am one of the many, many people who have the stories where they just felt unfulfilled and they felt pretty empty sitting behind a computer and inside of a cubicle. And then there was something else in my life that I wanted to fulfill on. My side hustle during that whole time, I was training clients. I found my passion in fitness, so I was teaching group fitness classes. And when I hit that point where I was started soul searching, it made sense to take the leap of faith and switch careers altogether. So I flipped my career and went into fitness full time, and I studied. I was doing business and tech part time. At the same time, I actually was pursuing a master's of business administration as well. So I've always had a passion for business, but I wanted to see how I can design my career making fitness more of a lucrative option for myself. So the opportunity came about. I started to become a program manager, and I started managing my own gyms. One thing led to another, and I started getting more clients and getting more notoriety within the industry. And one of the challenges about switching careers, especially going from tech to basically about anything, is your income level. So one of the hard realities that I had to endure was in the fitness industry, I was earning significantly less than what I was earning in tech. But it didn't take me long to get back into the same income level that I was at previously. I can't say the same for my colleagues in the fitness industry who didn't have a background in business. Many of them were struggling. A lot of them quit the industry altogether just because it's a very challenging career, and especially a challenging career to sustain in an area like Silicon Valley where the cost of living is really, really high. So I entered in probably another year of soul searching to see what else I can do to give back to the community I love and the industry I'm very passionate about. So I felt it was my social responsibility and my unique opportunity to provide the industry with education about financial literacy, how I did it, what I understand about the business world, what I understand from my formal education. And this is where my book comes into play. So I wrote a book for the fit but poor personal trainer, a guide on how to train money, not muscle, to grow. I have it available on Amazon. I have it on my website, and I develop online courses so personal trainers understand financial literacy. So I teach not sales and marketing. The industry has a lot of information on how to get a client, but not a lot of information on how to sustain within the career. So the personal trainer does not burn out or feel compelled that they need to leave the career in order to pursue something else that's more lucrative. And my goal, my overall mission in life is to provide that education to make a difference and capitalize on a lot of people who are very passionate and smart about physical wellness and fitness, and help them out and teach them ways how they can continue making a solid impact for more and more people. That's
Wow,
me.
that's awesome. And I think that was super valuable to hear,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely a really interesting story, because I think most of us, at least from my vantage point, when I think about Silicon Valley, you do think of tech, right? And so you
Mm-hmm.
kind of you ended up in the career that people probably expected, and
Yes.
then the reason why you're on the show is you actually blazed your own trail and decided to go a route that's massively different, right? Because when you're in a
Yes.
cubicle, you're really not talking to a whole lot of people.
Yes.
And when
Yeah.
you are, you're probably doing it more electronically, like through Skype or
Yeah.
Slack, right? Like
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
type of direct messaging. And so, and you don't seem like an introverted guy to me. You seem more
Yeah.
extroverted.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and I know how it is for me. Like typically when when I'm in the office for my uh, role that I hold in the corporate world,
Mm-hmm.
it's tough. It's tough to sit
It's
there.
tough.
It's tough because
Yeah.
like I'm super extrovert as well, so I want to be out talking to people, and to be kind of confined to a small space like that,
Yeah.
it's almost like you were able to kind of spread your wings,
Yeah.
and now you're soaring, right? And you're
Yeah.
also doing
Absolutely.
something that you're super passionate about,
Yeah.
and for me, like that's where it's at, right? It's
Yeah.
if when you're passionate about something, it's almost like it's not even work, right? You're
Yeah.
having
Exactly.
having a great
Exactly.
time. So well, super cool that you went the route of a personal trainer. So
Mm-hmm.
how much like knowledge did you have going in about like fitness? Like like would you say you were at like I had 80%, 100, like, or was it way lower than that when you first
I
first
would
started?
say when I first started, I would say I was about 50% because I definitely
Okay.
could not compete with the students and the graduate students who had formal education in kinesiology and physiology.
Yep.
So they went in depth and they actually had, term papers and thesis and all the many, many years of developing into anatomy. I couldn't compete with that. So in the
Okay.
personal training world, you go through these associations to take the exam to be a certified personal trainer. So my knowledge base was based on that, based on my own research that I had to, YouTube and articles and studies that I would read on my own. But also in group exercise, you have to be certified to teach particular formats. So if you wanted to teach a particular format in dance or in weightlifting or yoga, in order to be certified as any yoga instructor, you have to do at least 200 hours. So that's kind of an equivalent truncated education in order to teach that particular format. So I definitely put in my hours, but I couldn't compete with the official formal education of a trainer. Once I entered into the industry full time, that's when I started taking more and more courses, trying to supplement and trying to, in a way, try to keep up. Um, the tricky part about that also is going back to my passion. I didn't want to be competing against with other personal trainers. These are my colleagues. These are wonderful people who give incredible advice. So I knew my skill set my hard skill set couldn't be on par with theirs. I could gain a lot of information, but my unique point of view is going to be on the business side, which they may or may not necessarily have on their end. So it was kind of interesting entering into the workforce. I had to know who I am first, what my skill sets are. There's going to be some things that I know well. There's going to be some things I don't know well. But working with the people who complement that. So as a team, I found really good workplaces where I don't feel less confident or inferior. I found teams and colleagues where we can partner up and provide a great gym experience. But we're all our relationships are symbiotic in that way. So I took one of my weaknesses and turned it into a benefit that could actually develop an entire team within the gym.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. So tell me about when you were a kid. Were you into
Yeah.
fitness? Was fitness something that you were like super into, or were you were you into sports? Did you play any sports?
I'll put it this way. I tried. I was athletic. I was hyper. You're right. I was pretty outgoing. I just loved doing stuff and running and playing with my friends. I like being outdoors. Was I coordinated? Not really. Was I ever first picked on the team? No. Could I ever jump high enough to reach the basketball hoop? No. But my enthusiasm was there.
There you go.
My
There you go.
motivation was there, and that never stopped me from playing as many sports as I could. So being active, yes. Being coordinated to play any sport, no. So I always had that drive. Another thing about being a kid, and I think in terms of how it evolved and knowing oneself, is that I always was passionate about helping other people as well. So even if I was physically active, what some of the best entrepreneurs, some of the best role models, the most influential people you'll ever know are not only passionate within their own career, but they physically reach out and include you in their activities. They're just generally enthusiastic, and they may not be like the smartest one in the field, but their passion and their enthusiasm totally resonates with you. So that I remember as a kid, because I would get other people excited about random stuff. And even now when I talk, I get people excited about the randomness that comes out of my mouth also. So
there you go.
Yeah, that talent never left me.
Hey, well, listen, self-awareness is everything, right? And so, being aware of how you're wired. I don't, have you ever taken any type of personality assessment, like when you were in
No, I
college
haven't.
or nothing?
In college, I think I did, but it's been so long. I probably did when I was taking psychology courses.
Okay.
GEs, I can't remember the role.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yeah. So part of my background, I'm actually certified in Myers-Briggs. It's a
That's the one I was thinking
MBTI
of.
type assessment. Yeah. Most people have taken it in college and then they take it later in life. And, it's one of those assessments that, as a certified practitioner, one of the things that we learn is that, you have to take these assessments in a neutral headspace, right? It's when you're thinking about the questions, don't waver, just kind of answer right in that moment. And when you do it that way, the results aren't going to be skewed, right? It's going to be basically how you thought of it in that moment, in that second.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very fascinating, though. And like from me, obviously, I know you're an extrovert. Like we can tell that, you're super energetic and optimistic, right? So and really the E and the I when it comes to those assessments they're easy to identify, right? We can identify people that don't want to talk as much, and then people that just can't not talk, like me,
Yeah.
So and it's super interesting to see it in other people,
Yeah.
I have, my wife and I have 4 kids, and all of them have different personalities, and I can easily see which, like my 11-year-old, she wants to be by herself and she wants to read, and my 8-year-old's asking her questions every 2 seconds, right? And so you can kind of notice those. You notice one that's like, I don't want to talk. I'm happy not doing, and then the other one's super hyper and energetic. So it's funny and interesting to see and how those opposites can have conflict, right? Can have conflict with each other. There's a quote that I heard. I can't remember who it's by, but it says, if you don't know what an extrovert is thinking, you haven't been listening, right? And if you don't know what an introvert is thinking, you haven't asked. Right. And that's
so great.
It's a cool quote to be able to easily identify from one to the other,
I'm glad that you brought that up with the differentiation as well as conflict, because I remember part of my job when I was working at the marketing agency in the tech world was paid search. So I was looking at ads, and I was enthusiastic about the task and that skill set for a while, until I wasn't enthusiastic about it, because it did require a lot of data analysis, looking at spreadsheets, looking at trends. And I was staring at a computer for so long. And one of the things that I eventually learned about myself, I hated implementation. I hated sitting there. Oh my God, and my back hurt. Props to and mad respect to anybody who find that career fulfilling. More power to you. Just for me, for my personality, I wasn't attuned at that point to who I am as an extrovert. And I just noticed that internally there was a conflict, and it would actually personify itself. And I would be more boisterous and frustrated and projecting onto other people, because internally it just wasn't the right match. So taking the leap of faith and actually trusting my gut instinct to switch careers into something that required more extroversion was one of the best things I could ever do for myself in my life. But it was, in an odd way, it was something that I should have done previously if I were paying attention to what was going on within. Like, I've always known myself to be that. And I didn't realize it until probably my friends gave me direct feedback and saying, you know what, you're really smart. You know your stuff in terms of business, in terms of tech, but your working environment, it's not suitable for you. So it was actually, I leave it up to them to hold a mirror up to me and say, this is your reflection. You really should take the leap of faith and pursue a totally different career. Still hold on, take whatever you learned, but now apply it into your new industry. And leaving the tech world when you're living in Silicon Valley is like the kiss of death. And people don't know what to do with you. And they're like, oh, you're leaving this tech company? What are you going to do? Are you going to do? And they would start rattling off other careers that are still related to tech. Like, no, it's not. You have to understand. And people were generally worried. But I had to keep reassuring them, like, this is me. This is what I want to do. Even now, I still get it where in the personal training world, when I'm sharing my message with other people who are so trained in anatomy, kinesiology, and physiology, they're great personal trainers, but they understand the sciences. And when I bring my message of like, it's great that you know the sciences, but can you be financially literate and understand there's the revenue that you get from personal training clients, and then there's income. There's going to be everything in between, which is going to be taxes, which is going to be cost of goods sold. There's going to be all these things that take away revenue. And then I'll get a lot of people who are, again, their mindset is in sciences, and they could just kind of gloss over. And I said, oh, okay. So still being true to my passion and being what I intend to educate people on, sometimes it can feel almost lonely. Almost lonely when you're talking to an audience who has a different mindset, but you know in your heart that this is a message and that needs to be communicated. So that's where I'm at right now. And again, taking that leap of faith and knowing that I am making a difference within the industry, knowing that I do have that unique voice in terms of business and personal training and communication, and trying to do some good with this also. Going back in the context of setting your own trail, blazing your own trail, I don't know if any other entrepreneurs feel this. I definitely do. There are going to be times you feel really lonely because you feel like you're the only one, and really you are the only one with your unique perspective also, but you just kind of have to keep staying true to yourself and keep going.
Yeah, no, that's it. And those are definitely really, really good insights. And I like the fact that you have this unique skill set, because probably most people that are in your, and I'm just speculating here, I don't know any stats on this, but I would assume that most people that are personal trainers don't also have what you have, right?
Yeah.
They don't also like understand a business model, understand like P&L, budget, right? Like
Exactly.
all of those things that
Yeah.
you actually need to know
Yeah.
about, so that you know if your business is actually sustainable. Right. I mean,
Exactly. Exactly.
so that's amazing. So when did you actually come to the fruition that you wanted to write a book?
It was, I distinctly remember, it was 12 months ago. It was January. And it was in that soul searching phase of there's got to be something more in the fitness industry, and there's got to be something more that I can do with my career. I started getting that itch that there's something lacking in terms of fulfillment. But the more that I started researching what would it take if I actually became an author, it's always been a smart goal of mine, but I never actually had the motivation to do it. I didn't know what to say. When I started researching, and especially going onto LinkedIn and looking at all these self-published authors and these great people who are notable within their own industries, I said, you know what? Why not me? I see all these motivational quotes and people are so serious about it that, oh, you're the one, you should keep going, and all these inspirational things that they post. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should take it to heart. Why not me? So it took several drafts, and it took about 9 to 10 months in order to sit down and formulate not only all the hard skills that are in my head, but also work with my editor to understand my own voice and my unique perspective to organize it in a way that ended up being like 150 pages. I didn't know I had so much to say until I actually started drafting. And that, I would say, the first couple of drafts were the hardest parts about the whole writing process, because I had to get in tune that I genuinely and acknowledge that I have a lot in my head and that I have a lot to say. So it's just taking that time out to slowly comprehend, make sense of it all, and make sure that all my thoughts are comprehensible. But it's always been a smart goal of mine. It was finally getting that nudge from other people and taking it seriously that I have the confidence in order to get this done. look at me now. I'm
Yeah,
self-published and it's selling.
no, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's definitely awesome that, it's I'm sure it was, getting that first copy in your hand, right? Like
Yeah.
the first,
Oh,
hardcover copy. I'm sure that was a pretty amazing moment, right?
it was surreal, and the opportunities when it was finally out on market, the feedback I get was wonderful. I'm very grateful and very thankful. Probably one of the biggest accolades, and I'm in entries for awards, and I was a finalist in a couple literary awards as well. But I did a presentation at the University of San Francisco to the Student Association of Kinesiology for their department. These are the next generation of kinesiologists, of health wellness providers, personal trainers, and probably that was my biggest accomplishment. That I think about it, and the 1 hour I was doing my presentation with them, explaining my book, but actually teaching them what financial literacy means, they just soaked it in. I mean, these young minds were like, so tell me about adjusted gross income, and tell me how do I get to my net, and can you tell me how do I calculate my federal tax implications? And so we were going through all these exercises, and I was telling them, when you first get your paycheck, there's going to be something like adjusted gross income, and then you have to see FICA. FICA is 8%. You don't have a choice. You have to pay it. They're like, I do? And I'm like, yeah, when I could go back in time, no one taught me that. So if you're going to enter in a career where your revenue is going to be generated by the number of clients that you have times your rate, you're going to have a couple more calculations to figure out what are the implications that are going to take your revenue away. Because once you graduate, you're going to have that student loan payment. You're going to have all these different other costs of living that will probably make you reconsider living in San Francisco, and will probably make you want to move and relocate somewhere else where the math actually works in your favor. It was probably the most fulfilling presentation I've done to date. And they had more questions about the book. They had more questions about me, but that's when it was really solidifying for me that I'm doing good for the world, for the community, but I'm also making a positive impact on the next generation. I believe these are now Gen Z. I'm a millennial. They're Gen Z.
Yep.
But seeing their faces light up and actually develop what I truly wanted to deliver is confidence. Now I get at least these 12 students understanding how to manage their money, and they're not afraid to graduate and have the weight of a student loan on their backs. They actually know how to manage it. That meant the world to me. Like, good. My book is doing good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So did you set a goal? Did you want to be, on the top Amazon list, the New York Times? Like what was did you have any aspirations, or was the goal just to get it out so that people would be impacted by it?
Well, several listeners, I need to clarify that I do not teach sales and marketing. So there's so many resources within the fitness industry and so many great experts that will teach you how to do email marketing or paid search or search engine optimization or reach or social media influencing. Wonderful people who will give out sales and marketing tips and courses in order to generate revenue. What I want to educate personal trainers are there's going to be their revenue, then come seeing me, because I will teach you everything that will take the revenue away. I'm going to teach you how to do your financial statements, your net income statement, show you all the different costs of goods sold, because what you really need, what you're going to live off of is income. So if any of you are really specialized in sales and marketing, listeners, I'd love to partner with you so we can develop a more comprehensive education to set up entrepreneurs, personal trainers, anyone who's venturing out on their own to see both sides of the same coin. There's going to be the revenue, there's going to be things that generate revenue and things that will take away revenue. I'm the guy who will educate you on what those things are, because really we want to make a difference, but give people in general a more holistic approach when viewing money. So I'd love to have some type of partnership with anyone within the sales and marketing field to provide that better service and education out there. I do want my book to win a couple awards. So I'm a finalist in 3 and I'm waiting for feedback on 7. So hopefully, I accomplished one of my SMART goals. So in the personal training world, you have to recertify your certificate every 2 to 3 years. depending on the organization that you have to go through what we call continuing education unit programs. Not that many personal trainers, not that many experts offer the courses that provide those units for those programs, but every personal trainer in order to certify had to accumulate a certain number of units to show that they were constantly learning within those 2 to 3 years. Yep. On my website, I have a self-study course on the fundamentals of financial literacy that actually qualifies as one of those programs to give out those units. So I'm one of the select few educational providers as vetted by the National Association of Sports Medicine. So that's one smart goal. I want to start taking that self-study course and start branching off into webinars, start doing more speaking engagements, more in-person and one-on-one coaching. And the majority of my products will qualify for those continuing education units. Definitely a mission and a cause that I believe in that will only help other personal trainers, but I want to get financial literacy standardized in terms of education. If I can't, first starting off within my industry, but I do have a couple opportunities to get financial literacy education more integrated into the universities and high schools, and honestly, even in the elementary schools. So everyone at every generation feels more confident handling their own money.
Very cool. Yeah, maybe you can make the next board game, the financial literacy board game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why not? That would go over well with the elementary and middle school kids.
Yeah.
So, or maybe some financial literacy pogs. I don't know if you remember pogs, but
of course.
I just saw they made a comeback. I just saw them. They had them at Target the other day. Like literally on the, and I was like, pogs are back. Like it was literally it was like a trend for like 2 weeks, and then they disappeared. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
That's my generation, and now this new generation thinks the same. Well, the funny thing is that I've been watching a lot of these sitcoms, and they're doing a lot of their nostalgic type of episodes.
Yeah.
But the past is like the 90s. That's another thing that makes me feel so old. I'm like, how old am I? I'm 38 years old. But I was watching, episodes on Fresh Off the Boat, as well as Blackish, and when they do like flashbacks of the parents going back in time, they're only going back to like 1989 or 1993. Like, it's not that far.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting because I'm 38 as well, and I think about the 90s. Like it just happened, and it's so funny. Like our oldest son just turned 15, and so he's like the cool kid, right? He's got to have like go to PacSun and all these different stores, and it's funny to see like all of the clothes. It's like 90s stuff. I'm like, like I wore the same shirt like when I was 15, and now you think it's cool? Like, it's just so interesting to see how the trends happen and how things just come back,
Yeah, I'm like, I can't believe. I was just talking. I was doing wine tasting with a couple friends, and the person who was serving us, I want to say he was like 21 or maybe 22 or something. He was born and raised within a winemaking family. And he was talking to us about college and things like that. And he asked me a question, and I said, well, I don't remember what college. And I looked at him like, when I was your age, when I was 21, and I would like continue on with my story. I'm like, I can't believe I'm at the age where I'm telling people when I was your age. I still feel like I'm in my 20s, kind of, sort of, until it's like 10 o'clock at night until I'm tired.
Right. Yep. That is it. Awesome. So tell me a little bit about your background. I know we talked before we started recording, and you had mentioned that your parents are from the Philippines. So
yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that. I'm big into culture. I know I told you my dad's from the Philippines as well. So but just give the audience a little bit into your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So both of my parents from the Philippines, they immigrated in the early 70s. When my mom finally immigrated to the United States, she took my older brother and my older sister. They're older than me by 9 and 10 years. So I'm the first one out of the 5 of us who was born and raised in the Bay Area. We're all still in the Bay Area. My grandmother, on my mom's mom, immigrated in the early 80s to help raise me while my parents were working. So in the Philippine household, it was my 2 parents were working. We were all going to school, but it was my grandmother who did a lot of the raising. So I grew closest with her. Plus, my siblings were teenagers and they were doing teenager things in the 80s as well. So I had no one to talk to. So I talked to my grandma. Um, was because she and I were super, super close, and it's very common in Asian culture. You don't put your grandmother in an old people home.
Yep.
They stay in they stay in your home until the very last day. So when she was diagnosed with diabetes and she had a stroke, um, that was when I was in high school. Things got a little rocky and it was pretty hard. She passed away my senior year of college. And so when there's a death in the family, it's hard to deal with, but especially if it's the some person who raised you, uh,
Absolutely.
it was really, really hard on me. It went into, I kind of put down all of those emotions for about 4 years and dove right into work and became very protective of my emotions and vulnerability. It wasn't until about 4 years later the emotions started coming out, and I started really seeking professional help in terms of grief, in terms of understanding who I am as a Filipino man, in terms of my culture, in terms of my family, and understanding all the dichotomy that surrounds that. Once I got a good handle of that and I finally got closure, I got closure because I got a tattoo of my grandmother on my back. There's a huge, huge angel that's about the size of my palm. That's when I felt like I can finally move on with my adulthood. Um, Funny thing is that that whole notion of understanding of my role within the context of being Filipino and Filipino American, my parents are Filipino. I'm Filipino American, so there's a totally different disconnect. And I had to explain to people, yeah, I was born and raised in a culture that is more independent thinking, that is very entrepreneurial thinking, whereas my parents are very communal. So that was another source of conflict to begin with. It's very common for people to explain to their Asian parents what they're doing, what their career choices are, and for the Asian parents to not understand. So
Yep.
my parents understood I was pursuing a tech career, so they thought I was going to be this big executive. Okay, I'm not going to be a nurse, or like my mom, I didn't work at the post office, or I'm not an engineer. I do not like engineering. I was never interested in it, but my dad was. So for them to hear that I was going to leave the tech industry to go into what physical fitness, you want to teach Zumba, you want to work at the gym down the street, like, no, and no, and no. So that was another thing that I had to deal with. Not only was I had to entrust myself that I was doing what was right for me, but also going back to my family and the nuclear family where they actually didn't know what I was doing, and hearing their message less of condescending and disapproving, but more as worry that, hey, are you going to be okay living in this new country? This is the United States, this is in the Philippines. In the Philippines, they didn't grow up with so many choices, whereas I did. Um, I think what made the difference with my family was that they saw that I'm financially stable and that I'm helping others. But to know that I'm not asking them for money and I own a house, they just wanted to be reassured that their son is going to be okay, and I am. But dealing with Asian parents specifically, it could be frustrating. It could be comical at times also. But I did have to shed that stereotype that I'm not going to be one of the stereotypical Asian careers that you would otherwise think of.
Yeah, and that's so sorry about your grandmother. It's tough, right? It's
It's
tough
tough.
when
Yeah.
you lose somebody, especially someone that you're super close to. And
Yeah.
I can relate to that experience. My mom passed away 7 years ago,
Hmm.
and it was one of those things where she got sick in November, and then by March she had
Yeah.
passed away. And
Hmm.
I remember that like loneliness and that kind of dark place that
Yeah.
you don't even realize that you're there, like
Yeah.
literally just going through the motions of life and you're kind of
Yeah.
numb.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can completely relate to that. And for me, it was, the support of family and friends, and,
Hmm.
just kind of one day, like looking at myself and saying, is this what she would want you to do? Would she, would
Yeah.
she want you to be there and stay there and not actually like live your life,
Yeah.
So I had to just kind of switch that and to start celebrating her more, right?
Yeah.
And looking at it from that context. But I
Yeah.
completely get like why it took you so long, why it took you 4 years to, to snap out of it. I mean, because
Yeah.
listen, it's when that happens, and I think it happens to most human beings at some point in their life, like it's a very interesting, almost eerie kind of place,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the way that time moves when you're there is different.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only
Absolutely.
way that I can really explain it. So I definitely
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that with me. And my dad was from the Philippines and my mom's American. So I grew up first 12 years just with my mom, didn't meet my dad till I was 12. So
Yeah.
you can imagine me like growing up in America, American home, all regular kind of stuff, and then going and meeting him, and like he was super strict, and he was, like I would have to like do schoolwork in the summer. I was like, what? Like, wait
I
a second here. Like, I'm pretty sure I was on summer break.
Yeah.
Why am I doing math right now?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely hate math to begin with. Um, but yeah, so no, I can relate to the one Asian parent thing, and
Yeah.
it definitely is different. But I like what I learned from my dad was hard work. Like he actually started working on the rice fields when he was 7. Yeah, and like
Mm-hmm.
there was no you were the machine. You might have he had a
Mm-hmm.
caribou that was dragging him, like
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like so he started there, and then he went into the Philippine Army after high school, and then he was a merchant marine, and then he was a seaman and sailed on ships, and
Mm-hmm.
he was searching, he was trying to, like you said, there's not a lot of opportunities there. So
Yeah.
like a lot of Filipinos do, they want to come for the American
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah.
They
Yeah. Yeah.
want something better than they have back home.
Yeah.
And most of them, I don't know if your parents were like this, but my dad, it was like most of his income went back there, right,
Mm-hmm.
to start a business. He actually created a rice mill, like built a rice
Mm-hmm.
mill, and then he built a boarding house for college students. And so his
Mm-hmm.
money actually went back to invest there, so that when he retires, he feels like he has something established.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I'm
so I
glad that
can
you brought
definitely
that
relate
up.
there.
Um, it's such an interesting segue. Also, I didn't. Probably it wasn't until recently, until I was in my 30s, that I actually started understanding my parents for being the adults that they are, and understanding the plight, the immigration plight, and what type of the situation that they went to a brand new country to resettle their entire family and started from nothing. So I remember growing up, and you know what? It was rightfully so that I did get spanked for talking back and not appreciating the things that I have, because they worked their butts off for me. I didn't really see that until I became a full-fledged adult and I was standing on my own. That I look at my dad and like, man, you handled life way more gracefully than I did, because, and especially under the circumstances that you did. My dad is dark skinned, so he had to deal with a lot of racism. He was originally supposed to move in with my family in Chicago, but something happened. They had a falling out, and then he relocated to the Bay Area, and we were here ever since. So my life could have been totally different. Our lives could have been totally different if we didn't take the leap of faith to immigrate to the United States. So it was. I always appreciated my parents, but I didn't appreciate my parents into the depth, the emotional depth that I have now. Now that I am, well, now that I'm in my 30s, a way different context, and I say that because it gives me more of a deeper understanding of my why, of why I want to blaze my own trail, to be the entrepreneur, to make not only my parents proud, my family name proud, but also make my grandmother proud. She took care of me, and to live a life that's fulfilling and that's happy, and to give back to community. Without Asian parents don't talk a lot, they don't say anything, but I know that makes them happy. So
Sure,
that adds into
absolutely.
my why.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, them seeing you thrive and knowing, like you said earlier, like once they knew you were okay, once they knew that you were
Yeah,
financially stable, then they were fine. Like then they were okay.
yeah,
Like go
absolutely.
do Zumba if you want to now.
Yeah,
Like as long as you're good,
yeah,
and you don't have to ask us for like they want you to be sustainable, and I get it.
yeah, yeah.
And it's so interesting because it makes sense, but you know it's funny because like thinking about your parents, right?
Hmm.
Like you can probably see both of them in you, right? Like
Yeah.
like how we're wired, we get a lot
Hmm.
of the things. Like for me, my mom was like super kind. And she's, American, a white lady, blonde hair, green eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
maiden name is Lynch, so super Irish. And then my
Mm-hmm.
my great grandmother was full-blooded Chippewa Indian, and so
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I'm Irish, Native American, and Filipino. So I'm a mixed, right? In
Mm-hmm.
Philippine terms, they call me a mestizo, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
like
Yep.
the
Yep.
mixed
Yep.
terminology. But like my mom was always super kind. She was outgoing. She had a lot of energy. She actually was born with one lung. And so her
Wow.
entire life, her entire 54 years that she was alive, she lived on one lung, but she never complained. She was on oxygen most of her life. And
Uh-huh.
when I think about like things that I've gone through, like I firmly believe I haven't even experienced adversity yet. I mean, this is
Mm-hmm.
somebody that when she was
Good
born in
point.
1958, the
Yeah.
doctor said she wouldn't live to be 18. She wouldn't be
Wow.
able to have any kids. And she
Yeah.
lived to 54 and had 5 boys. So like
Wow.
she did super well with the cards that she was dealt. And so when
Yeah.
I look at my life, I get my kindness and empathy and being outgoing from her, and I get the hardworking, put
Mm-hmm.
your head down, dig in the dirt if you have to make money from my
Mm-hmm.
dad. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
combine those, and when you're able to take those things that they taught you over
Yeah.
the time that you've had with them,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's I think when you start to really identify who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I started recognizing, and it wasn't until my friends, until my partner actually told me, like, you resemble your dad a whole lot, even though I've seen you fight with them more than once. But my anal retentiveness, my ability to sit down and stare at numbers, I get it from my dad. I mean, from the engineer. My fun-loving side, my extroversion, my mom. But I didn't really see that until
Yep.
someone actually points it out, and it's just I remember growing up, and I fought with them a whole lot. I just didn't want to be hanging out with the family all the time, but I wanted to be with my friends. And it wasn't until I became an adult that I said, "Oh my God, I became you guys." Oh, it's weird. So
Absolutely. That's definitely true.
yeah.
So, um, well, hey, listen, man, it's been awesome. It's been awesome getting to hang with you, getting to learn a little bit more about you and what you do,
Yeah.
and I definitely know this is going to provide a lot of value to the audience. So,
Good.
I wanted to just so you can say, I'm going to put everything in the show notes for everybody, but just tell everyone where they can find you. Where's the best place to find you? Where are you hanging out on social platforms, or best places to get a hold of Nelson Toriano?
Sure. My website is coachnellytoriano.com. You can find my email there as well. It's nelson@coachnellytoriano.com. Also, follow my Insta, Coach Nelly Toriano. That's my handle, as well as the URL for my Facebook as well. So reach out to me. We'd love to connect you with you. Oh, and
Awesome.
LinkedIn, by the way, also under my full name, Nelson E. Toriano. You can find me there too.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll make sure, folks, that all of those links will be in the show notes. So definitely reach out. He's super energetic, as you could tell, super passionate about what he does, not just about fitness, but actually making sure that people have sustainable businesses, right?
Yes.
Because it's one thing to be able to do what you're passionate about, but if you don't know how to manage those finances, it's
Mm-hmm.
tough to actually make what you're passionate about an actual career. So, hey, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Can't wait till this airs, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Nelson Toriano. What an amazing story, from tech to fitness and all of the great things he's doing for the fitness community about teaching them how to make sure their business is successful through financial literacy. Definitely make sure to go follow him on all of his social media accounts. I'll be dropping that into the show notes. And please make sure, if you're not subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe and tell all your friends about the Blaze Your Own Trail podcast. I really, really appreciate all your support.